Hello everybody. I would like to make a video to share that you could take a radio like this, a ham radio. This is considered a ham radio, and you can get onto repeaters with it, or you can talk, simplex radio to radio, or you can have a group of friends come together. They have these radios. They're in like at a ham fest, or if you're in a public event, you can use a radio like this to communicate with other hams in your group. It also works very well with repeaters, and you can talk on repeaters with it. This also has DMR, where you can talk on DMR repeaters, or you can use a hotspot node, which gets you out to the network. It allows you to be able to communicate on the digital networks, such Brandmeister and TGIF and DMR Plus, and just the various digital DMR digital servers that you can use. There's different servers that give you different places you can communicate. But I just also would like to tell you, this radio, or radios like this, can also be used for emergency communications. What I do like about this radio, is I not only have my repeaters in it and my DMR groups that I talk on in the radio, but I also have my local police and fire, or my local 911 dispatch frequencies programmed in here. So if I'm outside or in town somewhere and I'm not nearby a radio, I can be able to hear what's going on if there's emergencies going on in the village of Herkimer, or in the surrounding area where I'm at. I can just tune to any of the frequencies they'll listen in. This is not on those frequencies. You cannot transmit. You cannot transmit on those frequencies because they're out of band, and they're out of band, and they're only for listening only. So you can listen to public safety on these particular radios. Only listening purposes, because they have it to where you can listen to them, but they make them out of band, because this is an amateur radio. This is for amateur radio use only. But you can listen to public service, or public safety with these radios. But like I said, it's off band, it's out of band, and those bands are only, or those frequencies are only for listening only purposes. If you even try to accidentally key the mic on those frequencies, which is very highly illegal, don't do it. But even if you tried and you accidentally were listening in, and you accidentally hit the push the talk button, it's not going to be able to key up, because the radio, like I said, those frequencies are out of the amateur radio band spectrum. So anything that's not within the amateur radio bands, or you can listen only, but you cannot transmit. those, because they're considered commercial, they're considered like commercial frequencies. And you need a commercial radio to be able to transmit on them. And you need a commercial license. And you need to be, you need to have permission and special privileges to have a radio to be able to transmit on those frequencies. Like, you need to be a firefighter, or you need to be a police officer, or anything like that. Then you can get a radio that signs those frequencies to you, so you could be able to communicate with 911 dispatch, to be able to communicate for emergencies and stuff. But this radio is only an amateur radio. Only an amateur radio transmitting radio only. It can only transmit on those bands. On a 2-meter band, which is 2 meters, and then you got your 70 centimeter band, which is amateur radio as well. So those bands you can transmit on them as long as you have an amateur radio license, and it only requires a technician's license to be able to transmit on the 2 meter and the 70 centimeter bands. But I'm going to demonstrate that I can be able to listen to public safety. And the benefit of that is I don't have to have a scanner, and I don't have to have another radio. I can just take one radio with me, and I can be able to listen to, police or fire if there's activities going on. So, as you see right there, I don't know if you can see it, but that's the fire. That's Herkimer County's fire dispatch. And then I have the Herkimer MRD, which is our local village police. And I have them in here. I can listen to them as well. Only for monitoring and listening purposes. So if I want to hear if there's a fire, or if there's something going on and I'm not nearby a scanner, I can be able to tune into these frequencies.
613 will be out of service. Stand by, lanterns, races.
See, there's a...
Right, 1759.
There's the fire dispatch. So yes, I can listen to fire and police being dispatched by our local 911 center. And like I said, that's only listening purposes. But I do have that. I do like that benefit of being able to have kind of like two radios in one. Kind of like two radios in one, like your amateur radio, and also for public safety listening. Also, we have several amateur radio repeaters for Herkimer County. We have one repeater that's on Spoon Hill, which is on 145110, and that is up on Spoon Hill. That's it's up on Spoon Hill. It's almost between Richfield Springs and it's between Richfield Springs. It's right kind of almost it's in like Columbia or Richfield Springs area. It's basically up on the mountain on Spoon Hill. It covers a lot of it covers a pretty good range. And then we have another repeater, which is kind of between Little Falls and Richfield Springs. It's there's a repeater on the mountain up there. I forgot the name of the mountain, but it's on frequency 146.805. We use this repeater as a secondary repeater in case our main repeater goes down, like when we're doing nests and stuff. Then we have another repeater, which is by our college. It's up on College Hill. It's by our college. It's by our college and 911 center. And that frequency for that repeater is 147.090. And that repeater is pretty much is a more shorter range repeater to get around, to use in case around the village of Herkimer. It's not really a majorly long range, but if you're in the village, you could be able to. It could be like a backup. And then we have another repeater that's more kind of towards Frankfurt and towards like up north. It's on a really high radio tower, and that repeater is 147.045. So that's from like the repeater north of us. Unfortunately, I'm not able to hit that repeater too well. I have hit the repeater before. I have got onto the repeater and made contacts with that repeater. But unfortunately, that repeater is kind of not in very good range for me. So that's kind of out of range for me. But I still have it programmed into my radio, just in case if I'm in that direction. I have that repeater that I can use if I'm in that area. So yeah, those are go.
602, go ahead with your data.
There's the police right there.
On West State, with your adventure, Lincoln, Union Davis, 9444, LUD 9444.
1805.
So see, you can listen to public safety. And also, I would like to share on our 145110 repeater, the Spoon Hill repeater, we also have a Skywarn, which is the National Weather Service. It's being broadcasted. Well, we have like a something that can broadcast National Weather Service to our repeater, so that way you don't need to. So us as Skywarn operators, instead of us running to pick up a radio or another radio with like a scanner or even a weather radio, like another weather radio, we can listen in on our repeater And if there's like a severe thunderstorm or a tornado warning, our repeater will it will transmit onto our repeater. It will broadcast over our repeater, and then it will and then any of our operator, any of the amateur radio operators that are on the frequency listening, they could be able to hear and listen in for weather updates. So we could be able to get updated for our weather and stuff. Then that way, if there is a tornado warning or any bad, storms in the area, we can listen in on that repeater. We can get up to date. Warnings for our area, and then it'll be whatever for the for our for in our club we also have Skywarns, and if there is if the storm is really really bad and it's causing damaging winds and causing property damage, and if we're getting hail and severe lightning and high winds and a lot of storm damages, then that's when we can call Skywarn. Can one of these Skywarn coordinators for our club can do an activation for Skywarn. And then we can get into what is called a Skywarn net. And then they'll have a bunch of the amateur radio operators check into that net. And then we'll have different operators in different places in the area to report any bad weather or storms back to the net control. Then the net control that's hosting or that's activating the net, that they can take reports, and they can get on the phone or they can be able to get in communication with the National Weather Service to pass the reports to them, to get warnings out for get the warnings out for the area. And it's always good to report that kind of stuff to the National Weather Service. So if there is if there was any type of tornadoes in the area, or really bad winds, damages and stuff, then they could be able to have get a better understanding of what happened and what type of storm that it was, and then they can do they can gather up research, and they can run radar. They could run the radar, and they can determine if there was any tornadoes in that area at that time. It's a way of triangulating tornadoes. It's a way of tracking down storms. So if there was any tornadoes in the area, they could be able to know exactly the whereabouts the tornado was, and they could be able to follow its path. And that way, they could get an idea where the tornado's going, so they could be able to get warnings for those areas. So that way, they could get emergency warnings out to infected areas that are going to get that severe weather. So we're saving lives, and we're helping. We're trying to help and do the best that we can to save lives and try to prevent, bad things to happen. If you're outside and it's lightning, you should not even be outside during a lightning storm. Because there's chances you can get struck by lightning or anything like that. High winds can blow a branch off a tree, and there's flying debris everywhere, so that's why these emergency messages are good to get out. So that way these storms can be tracked and be able to be monitored. So that way, if wherever the storm is going, wherever direction the storm is going, that we can already be ahead of it and be like, okay, this storm is going, whatever it is, like I say, it's going south. And if it's going south, then they're going to be able to track that storm going south. So anybody within the south area is going to be able to get emergency warnings for their areas, because amateur radio operators and Skywarn activators are able to, they are able to coordinate where the storms, the damages and everything, and then they could be able to get an idea of where the storm is going by looking at radar. We had a storm that just hit. Now, because we reported the Skywarn reported the bad weather for that area. Now we could be able to get those warnings. We could tell the person that activated the Skywarn can be able to get those reports to the National Weather Service, so they could be able to get on the radar on their computer, and they have like a special radar that they could track where that storm is going. So if the storm is leaving Herkimer County and it's heading towards away from Herkimer County, and say it's going to Fulton County, and that storm is headed right towards them, National Weather Service they could be able to track where the storm is from the previous reports for the affected areas, and be able to figure out where that storm is going and get warnings out for that area, for those areas. So if the storm is going to Fulton County or Fulton, New York, then National Weather Service can put out a warning for that area. So if anybody's in that affected area, they can put out warnings there, so people can seek shelter, get inside, get away from doors and windows, go to the lowest floor of your house. If you have a house with a basement, go into a basement. But if you don't have a basement, try to go as low as you can. And if you have to take a mattress or any kind of cushion from a couch or even a pillow for that matter, and if you have to go into a closet under a stairway or something, and put the mattress over you or the pillow over you to protect you from anything collapsing down on you. So it's a thing to always consider. And this is also why I also encourage people to try to get an amateur radio license. Because if the power goes out, and if the internet were to go down, the people aren't going to get warnings. They're not going to be able to know if there's any emergencies happening because they don't have a amateur radio, or they're not trained, or they don't have the knowledge to know what to do during that time. So it's always good to look into getting an amateur radio license, or even having a scanner that has battery power, or if you have like anything that's battery power backup. That's the type of devices you want to have for in case there's an emergencies and stuff. But if you have an amateur radio license, you could be able to get on the radio and you're going to be able to know what is going on. So you're going to be able to get your friends and family out of danger and help with reporting bad weather to the Skywarn. And it can save a lot of lives. It can save a lot of lives. It can help get those warnings out so people don't have to have the risk of getting hurt or killed, for that matter. And this stuff is serious. This type of stuff is serious. Somebody's keying up a radio. I don't know what that was, but somebody was keying up on the repeater. And also, I would like to also share one thing that's important. If you're not an amateur radio operator, that means you do not have the privilege to key up on the repeater without having a license. This is a serious matter because a lot of times people do things that they're not supposed to do. A lot of times we would get people keying the mic they keep keying the mic. They call it kerchunking the repeater. They keep kerchunking the repeater, and they keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And it's disturbing the repeater. And it's causing, if there's emergencies and stuff and somebody's doing that, it can get serious. Things could happen because people are keying up the repeater and not identifying. They're doing it illegal, and they're keying the repeater and they're not identifying. That is a no-no. And if you are an amateur radio operator, and you're testing your equipment, the best thing to do is say your call sign and say that you're testing. So that way other people will know that you're identifying your license, and you're identifying yourself, and you're letting other operators know that you're testing your equipment. So that way, that way it saves a lot of problems. It saves a lot of problems. And it means that you're using your amateur radio skills correctly by identifying yourself when you have to test your radio equipment. I cannot stress this enough. If you're an amateur radio operator, you need to identify yourself on the air. You need to say your call sign phonetically and slowly, and say that you're doing a radio test. So that way people will know that you are doing a test, and other operators will know not to respond to that call. Okay? But for people that are doing it, for operators that are doing it without identifying, that is not practical. It's not very good. It's not using your amateur radio skills very good. And I think amateur radio operators need to practice, and instead of just keying the mic to see if the repeater's working or see if the radio is working, instead of just kerchunking, because that kerchunking is considered pirating. It's illegal, and it's against the law. It's illegal, and you can get in serious trouble from the FCC if you get caught. If you have an amateur radio license already, always identify yourself. When you're doing your testing, you identify yourself and to say, "This is KE2BJW. I'm doing a radio test. No radio transmission. No radio transmissions is unnecessary. Is necessary." And say KE2BJW out. And then once you unkey, then you're done. You're done with your test. It clears the frequency, it clears the repeater, and it puts the repeater back into amateur radio's use in case an operator needs to get on that repeater to use that repeater for emergencies or anything. It's always good to keep those repeaters open so it could be used for an emergency calls. If there was ever going to be an emergency, we could be able to get help to people that need, or get help out to the ones that are, in emergency. But I am a member of a radio club, and our radio club is called Fort Herkimer Amateur Radio Association. Good set of group of people, good set of high trained operators. They have the knowledge and everything. And it's a great club, great radio club, and and we do trainings. We do Aries trainings. We have Aries nets every Monday night at 7 p.m. On every Monday at 7 p.m. we have Aries net. And we do training on it. And we're learning the how to use our amateur radio skills so we can train to become part of Aries. In Aries, to be part of Aries, to be a member of Aries, so you can be part of emergency communications when at times when it's needed. But I just wanted to reach out and get this out there, because we've been having an awful lot of chunking the repeater. We've been having this problem for some time now, and I cannot, like I said, I cannot stress it enough. Always identify yourself when you're testing your radio equipment. Always say your call sign and always say that your call sign, the frequency that you're on, and say it phonetically and slowly, and always always announce the frequency number that you're on, so that way when you're doing the radio test or making a call out to the repeater, other amateur radio operators can be able to know what repeater you were calling from. Because if some operators, a lot of our members of the club, and a lot of our operators have more than one radio, so they're monitoring multiple band. They're monitoring, they can monitor multiple repeaters at the same time. So that's why I say it's always good to say your call sign phonetically and slowly, and whether that you're testing your radio equipment, you say, this is KE2BJW calling on 145-1100. I am demonstrating and doing a test here. No there's no need for any calls at this time. This is KE2BJW and we're clear. Or you say you're out. Always say over if you're expecting a reply, or out if you're done, and you end all communication. You end your communications. It's always good to practice your overs and outs, so that way it enhances your radio communication skills. But I just wanted to share this, and I just would like to just share this to get this out. That way, that way it lets people know the proper way of identifying yourself when you're doing like tests and stuff on the air. But that's all I want to say, and that's all for now. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe below. Subscribe or follow or subscribe if you're on YouTube or on Facebook. You can follow or subscribe, hit that like button, post comments down below. And I just would like to say thank everybody for watching. It's 73s and bye bye.